Hi folks, Talkin' Baseball is back with Season 4, Episode 3.
The weather's turning, it's middle of May, the weather is wonderful outside, and the season is at a quarter point right now, so we're coming to you to let you know our thoughts on the latest
And the Red
developments.
Sox currently are in first place.
With the best record in the majors, so there's not a lot to complain about.
However, before we begin on today's show, we have a couple personal notes that we thought we should pass along.
Shameless personal stories
Pete
here.
Lincoln, Jason Smith, we have personal things as well as the show going on.
So leading off, if you've read the Lunenburg Ledger at all, you might know about this. My little sister, love her with all my heart, Jamie Smith, was honored at Fenway Park a couple weeks ago by the Mass Teachers Association. She was chosen as an MVP teacher and was honored on the field before the game at Fenway, which was awesome. We have pictures. We're going to put one in here right now. It's in the Lunenburg Ledger. Take a look at it. So proud of her. Nobody's better at her job than she is. So
And
we love you, sis.
it was great. Our good friend Gordon Eads, who is the historian of the Red Sox, got Debbie down on the field so she could take close-up pictures and watch Jamie jumping around with Wally.
It was not televised, sadly, but read about it in the paper.
Unfortunately, I was unable to go because I have just undergone a colonectomy. If you don't know what that is, don't ever have one.
No, it's not pretty.
It's not pretty. It's very uncomfortable.
I work in medicine. I've seen the pictures. It's not fun.
And the only moment that made me happy was when I found out about Jamie. The recovery was difficult. It's the worst I have felt in my life since Buckner missed the ball.
I still haven't recovered from that, and I was 10. So.
I tried to throw myself out the window, but it was way too high.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm back among the living, following baseball again.
So we're back in full force right now. So we thought we'd touch base with you at the quarter point of the season. We're quarter point of the season, about 41, 42 games in right now.
All sorts of great things have happened, so we thought we'd call this show The Good, The Bad, and The Ugly.
Because there's been a little bit, mostly good, but there's been a little bit of everything along the course of the season here. A couple seriously ugly ones.
So we start out with the good, which is the 17-2 start the team had, which was the best in their history. Granted, they played some of the poorer teams, but so what? You have to beat everyone.
Absolutely.
Since that 17-2 start, they're 14-13, but still they have won 31 games at this point when we're recording this, which is the most in the majors.
And I think if you take the schedule piece by piece, there's a lot to like. Beginning with that Anaheim series in mid-April through the second Toronto series in Toronto, they had 25 games in 27 days. 19 of them were on the road.
That's right.
And they went to Oakland and Texas, which are their two house of horror parks they never win in. They had 3 series against the teams that were the hottest in baseball at the time they played. When they played Anaheim, they were 13-3. The Red Sox were 13-2. Tampa Bay was in the midst of an 8-game winning streak when they played, and the Yankees were in the midst of a 16-1 stretch.
Right.
And that stretch included 2 trips to Toronto, who's been a lot better than anyone's expected. They're above 500 right now. And not to mention, they had 6 games without Joe Kelly and a Brock Holt DL stint. They went 15-10 in that stretch. They played .600 ball. So that's something definitely to like in that whole stretch. They played very well. I know people have sort of reacted because they had a little hiccup against Oakland earlier in the week, but that happens.
So theoretically, since it's the quarterway point, you can quadruple all the totals.
Sure.
So that means they're going to win 122 games. Probably won't happen.
I don't think that's going to happen.
What does seem to be shaking out is a contest against the Yankees.
Oh, and let's not forget they're tied with the Yankees for the best record in baseball, and they played 9 more games on the road.
Right.
Don't forget that.
So that sort of leaves us into this kind of a peculiar trivia question.
Oh, yes, right.
The Red Sox-Yankees have been a huge rivalry now, I want to say since the 50s, because prior to that, the Red Sox were lousy, and the first 20 years, the Yankees were lousy.
Right. Yeah.
So, my trivia question is, what is the all-time one-loss record between the Red Sox and the Yankees?
Regular season.
Regular season.
Yeah.
Well, in postseason, they're 12 and 8 behind.
12, right.
They've only played it 3 times.
Right, only 3 times. Right.
All time. So that's from 1901 to 2018 as of the last series.
Get out your calculators.
I'll give you a hint. If you put all the total games together, they will play every day for 7 straight years.
So figure that one out. Mull that one over. So, and this is a sort of a jelly bean in the jar kind of trivia contest. We don't expect anyone to know this exactly, but if you're at least close, all right, we'll give you credit for getting it right. So think about that through the course of the hour.
Well, the first thing, speaking of good, is Mookie Betts.
MVP!
More than that, Mookie Betts has been extraordinary, and he is leading the majors at almost every offensive cat. The only one he's not leading in is RBIs, because the 8th and 9th hitters for the Red Sox are seldom on base.
Are sort of a black hole.
But total bases, extra base hits. In fact, he's only 4th or 5th in steals now.
He is, yeah. And his defense is as good as ever. I can only think of one ball that he's messed up all year. He had one in the Oakland series he took a bad route on, but his defense is stellar, and it just seems he's one of these guys who has become sort of, when Poppy was at bat or when Pedro pitched, that there's just this electricity in the air when he comes up. Everybody anticipates something good is going to happen every single time he comes up. In fact, it was a shock when he came up with the bases loaded the other night and popped out. Everyone said, wait a minute, that's not supposed to happen.
What I particularly like about him is his joie de vivre playing the game.
Yes.
So many of these superstars are Mr. Cool, or Bryce Harper has the best hair. But he just goes in the big grin all the time.
And he points at the dugout like he's having a
good time.
Yeah.
And you can't not like Mookie Betts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's 5'9" and weighs maybe 180, and he's leading the majors in home runs.
Goes to show you don't need to bulk up to do that.
He weighs over 100 pounds less than Judge.
That's scary. Well, if you watch the series, they're like this next to each other.
So you gotta like Mookie. So that's our number one.
That's our A++ one thing that's great.
And then second, it has to be J.D. Martinez.
Worth every penny so far. I mean, there was some criticism that maybe they'd given him too much money. It was too long a deal. He's been worth everything so far, and especially in contrast to last year's lineup where there really wasn't a constant power threat. He's changed the whole dynamic of the lineup. I'd still like to see him hit 3rd instead of 4th, but that's just me. But he has changed the whole lineup. Is that you're not going to try for 2 doubles or 3 singles to get a run. He can get someone on base and he'll knock in 2 runs, sometimes in the first inning, and get you a quick lead.
I mean, fans, myself included, are suspicious when they bring in a free agent for big bucks.
Always.
Because we've been burned.
Pablo Sandoval.
Kyle Crawford.
Kyle Crawford.
So many times you pay big money, it just doesn't work out. And what I am astounded by him is the way he hits to the opposite field. He sort of tucks his head down at an angle and blasts the ball to right field.
And it's not like the Wade Boggs opposite field single where he dunks it over the infield. He hits it hard the other way. He's hit a ton of wall balls and a ton of stuff to right field. And he's had just what they call the spray chart. His hits have gone to every single field. He hits a ton of homers to right field, which at Fenway is a long way to hit it, especially if you're a right-hander. So A++ on him. We've been incredibly impressed by him so far.
He's, because of Jackie Bradley's problems, he's had to play in the outfield a lot.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I haven't seen him miss anything up.
No,
he's been a satisfaction.
Sure, you stick him in that small left field, especially at Fenway. He's been fine. He hasn't been a detriment at all in the field.
And I think he almost prefers to be in the field.
I think he does too. I think he does too. Sure.
So that's definitely another plus, and has certainly changed the power angle of this team from last year to in the top 2 or 3 this year.
Yeah, they're second in the league in hitting right now. And actually, for all the trumpeting of the Yankees' power, guess what? The Red Sox actually have 1 more homer than the Yankees do right now. 4 less games, granted, but that's pretty even when you think about it. And the OPS, I think, is only 3-point difference. They're right with the Yankees in terms of team offense, and he's a big part of that.
And the weather's heating up.
Yes, it is.
Finally.
Yeah, it took long enough, right?
I think probably the other especially good thing is the starting pitching, for the most part, has been pretty good, especially Porcello and Sale.
Porcello and Sale both look excellent.
Their combined record is 10-2. Sales, as usual, hasn't been hit for 2 or 3 times.
Of course, yeah. He could easily have 7 or 8 wins now. I think there was one game the bullpen blew a lead for him, and a couple they just didn't hit for him.
My only complaint is, it seems to me sometimes he tries to get too many strikeouts.
He runs up a pitch count.
So he runs up. Last game he only lasted 5 innings.
And he threw about 110 pitches in 5 innings.
That's not. You don't have to strike everybody out.
Soft contact works just fine.
I noticed the last 2 or 3 times Kimbrel's been in, he's just had guys popping up.
He did last night. He had 3 pop-ups.
3 pop-ups, so he throws 9 pitches.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the bullpen, I think that's been a positive too. I mean, the bullpen's gotten a lot of flack, but when you look at the numbers, they're actually the 4th best in the league. Right. They're behind the Yankees and the Astros, which are the 2 class bullpens of the AL. Surprisingly, Toronto's 3rd, but I don't see that lasting. All the numbers scream a lucky fluke for them, for their bullpen being that good. And every single reliever, if you go by ERA+, which is an earned run average in comparison to the rest of the league, every one of them is well above a league average pitcher. Hembry's is just under, and his is skewed a lot by that meltdown he had in the Yankees series. He allowed 4 runs in 1 inning. If you take that out, his ERA+ is like 115, but Kimbrel's is about 220, Velasquez's is about 190. Barnes, who catches a lot of heat, guess what? He's blown 1 save all year, and it was in extra innings. And he has 11 holds this year, that's 2nd in the league. Sure. And his ERA+ is 160. He's been excellent.
So, okay.
So their bullpen has been really, really good.
And speaking of the bullpen, this leads us to my personal favorite moment of the year.
Yes.
In the first series against the Yankees, in the 2nd game, Tyler Austin. Tyler Austin is on first base, and there's a ball hit. Was it to short or?
It was to short because he took out Holt.
Okay, Brock Holt is playing second base, and with the new rules now, you can't take out the second baseman. You have to make a slide toward the base. Well, when Austin slid into second, after he hit the bag, he sort of kicked his leg up and nicked Holt in the foot, It didn't cripple him or anything. But Holt turned around and said something.
He said, what's going with that? He had no shot at a double play, so there's no reason for him to take out a move like that.
Several innings later, in comes Joe Kelly in relief. Now, Joe Kelly's first outing this year was in the first game of the season against the Rays, where the Sox had a 4-0 lead for Sale.
And he immediately gave it back.
He gave up 3 or 4 walks in it and blew the game to a person. Let's get rid of
Joe Kelly.
Joe Kelly. Get rid of him. Get rid of him. He proceeds to nail Tyler Austin in the middle of the back. Creamed him. Austin freaked out now. It wasn't a crippling injury.
No, he slams his back down.
He slams his back down to the ground, stopped a second, and then started running toward Kelly. Now, ordinarily, when the pitcher is charged on the mound, he backs off a little bit, or in Pedro's case, runs behind Ortiz.
Right.
Or waits for the catcher to help him out.
Right. Yeah,
Kelly stands there for a second. He sees it come, he goes like, come on, get me. And as Austin gets, he did a little dodge and then nailed him right on the ground.
And the pile proceeded on the field.
Austin shows up with a bloody lip. And Joe Kelly became a hero.
He's now the favorite guy on the team, according to the fan base. Well, it doesn't hurt that he's given up 1 run since opening day. That's the only bad day he's
had. And I have to show you my pride possession. The Joe Kelly Fight Club.
That's great. So anyone who beats up on the Yankees is a hero. So he will forever have a T-shirt in his name, even if he gets hurt, never plays again. There is a T-shirt in his honor because he took on the Yankees.
And it's remarkable how it's changed the outlook on him. When he showed up to pitch in Yankee Stadium in the next series, cascades of boos. That's a good thing.
It is good.
When you're booing the opposite field, that means people are noticing you, paying attention to you.
Yes.
And every time he comes out of the bullpen in Fenway,
it's a standing O.
So just one little gesture. Yeah. Come on, buddy, bring it on.
So Joe Kelly has a whole new fan base after a couple of years of back and forth. He is firmly forever a Red Sox now. And he's been terrific. Yeah, he's been excellent. He's still a little bit, I think I call him effectively wild. because he throws 100, but I wouldn't be digging in against him, as they said in Bull Durham.
And he's another one I don't quite get. He's not a big guy.
Not at all.
In fact, he looks a bit like Dave Sisler. These big black Buddy Holly glasses.
Right.
He doesn't seem too big a guy, but he's got to be strong.
Sure.
He regularly throws 100, and I think maybe this new pitching coach can harness him to be able to hit the corners better.
And I think, and he also has that no fear mentality.
Oh.
He does not care at all. Any batter, any
I can't
time.
remember the game. A couple games ago, he came on the bases loaded and struck out 2 guys in a row.
He did. Yes. Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
And fuck off your.
So Joe Kelly is our last good, really A+ part of the team. So now we're going to delve into some of the bad stuff, and not that there's a lot of bad, but this is a show. We have to be objective about certain aspects of the team, and there are some trouble spots, I think, heading forward.
What would you say is number one?
I think number one is the bottom of the lineup. Especially Jackie Bradley. What happened to this guy? I remember 2 years ago we had a 29-game hit streak, and they were ready to give him.
Started in the All-Star game.
Right, yeah, it was in the All-Star game. They were ready to give him the keys of the kingdom to center field, and now he just looks awful. He strikes out over half of his plate appearances, and he just looks clueless. I have no idea what happened to him.
He's hitting 161.
Yeah.
I think probably on a good day when I was a kid, I could have hit.
Probably, yeah. I could have 161. I mean, his defense is still great. I have to give him credit for that, but wow, the bat is just, I don't know what happened to him.
And so the number 9, they've hitting him 9th behind the catcher.
Right.
So nobody's ever on base for Mookie.
For Mookie. It's astounding how many RBIs Mookie's had, given how poor the bottom of the lineup has been.
And he doesn't foul the ball. He just swings.
No, he swings and misses.
Pitches right down the middle.
Yeah. He had one the other night. It was 91 down the middle. I don't know how you can ask for a better pitch. And he just swung right through it. I don't understand.
And so they take Cora's taking to giving him days off. Give him 3 days off. He comes back and
immediately strikes out. And that's a problem. That's a problem. I mean,
fortunately, Martinez can play the outfield.
Right.
So Benintendi can play center.
And they've really been like, but the days that Bradley does start, then you have a player crunch, and Moreland
sits down.
Which isn't right either. Moreland should be in every day. So that's a problem.
And I don't know what they're going to do going forward.
I don't know either.
I think we talked about this over the winter. He would be a good trade to the National League.
Right. But what would you get in return for him? Not a lot at this point. Yeah, right. Yeah. Just struck while the iron was hot, right? Yeah. So tying into that, I think the catcher offense has been disappointing too. There's nothing wrong with the defense. The pitchers seem to enjoy throwing to these guys. Here is our Christian Vasquez bobblehead.
No, it's a gnome.
Oh, it's a gnome, actually. It's a gnome, which Jerry Remy went on quite at length about when these were given out. But this is the Vasquez gnome. I'm not sure how much it looks like.
What is the point of this?
I have no idea.
What's this little dunce
pointy hat? I have no clue. But the pitchers seem to like throwing to Vasquez and Leone. I can't complain about the defense. I don't think Vasquez's arm is all that will ever be what it should have been.
What he used to
prior to the surgery.
Yeah.
And and the funny is, when Bradley's not in the lineup, you have a constant threat 1 through 8, and I can live with a soft out at the bottom of the lineup as long as the other 8 guys are producing. It's when you have that tandem of Bradley and a catcher at the bottom, then it's
an issue. And also Nunez has not been doing well. He's hitting about 230.
You know the funny?
He's hitting 7.
I was going to mention Nunez. He's sort of a funny case this year. Personally, I think he's still playing hurt. Because the funny thing is his power is where it was. He's on the pace for 40 doubles and 15 homers, which is right where his career norms are, but he's hitting 230. Yeah. He stopped running. I think he has 2 steals all year, and that was where a lot of his value was, and it doesn't look like he's very mobile in the field. I think he still has knee problems, and he hasn't recovered from the offseason.
Well,
that's just me.
He's probably going to be the odd man out when Petey comes back, which apparently is going to be fairly soon.
It's going to be within a week.
Probably by the start of June, Petey will be back. Now, that's always going to be a question mark. Is he 100%?
Is Petey 100%?
I think Petey at 80% over Nunez.
Oh, I would too. Absolutely. Absolutely.
His fielding is certainly better.
Petey's fielding is world class.
Where are they going to bat him in the order?
Well, he'll still want to hit second. I don't know if they'll allow. I don't know if they'll allow him to do that. Personally, I would start out. I'd hit him at the bottom. I'd hit him ninth. To be perfectly honest
Absolutely
with you.
agree with you.
Because I think that gives somebody ahead of Mookie who's on base constantly, and that gives him more chance to drive and runs.
I would do that.
Petey may not like it, but who do you move? I mean, do you move Benintendi out of the second spot and put him on fifth or sixth? I don't quite see that happening. And that means everybody gets knocked down a peg. That means Moreland is 7, Devers is 8. I mean, I don't see that happening. I would put him ninth to start out. Just me. So.
Other odd thing this year, I won't say it's a bad thing. Odd thing is Kimbrell's given up several home runs, couple in key situations too.
Yeah, I think that's just a small sample fluke, to be honest with you.
I hope so.
I think all his other stats are right in line with his career. In fact, his walks to hits is the second best he's ever had in his career this year. No. He's given up 10 hits all year, I think, and 5 of them are homers. Yeah. But his strikeouts are where they should be. His other numbers are right in line. I think it's just a fluke. Or the other thing is, the league, as you grow into a league, and you're there more and more, people sort of get a line on you more and more. If they faced you more and more, maybe people are just guessing right of his 3, because he has 3 killer pitches, but if you guess right, you can luck into one once in a while. I think that might be part of it, too.
It's also clear, too, that he needs to pitch a clean ninth inning.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Ninth inning.
Which I don't get.
They tried to bring him in with the bases loaded in the 8th inning.
And it was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster.
And I don't think he had warmed up much, because all of a sudden...
That might have been part of it, too.
Tough position.
Yeah, that might have been part of it, too. I don't think he was quite right. I don't think he expected to come in then. Well,
he still is a premier reliever.
Oh, I'm not. It's a small complaint on a great resume. I'd still take him in a second.
That's carping.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike Carping. So
this next one is not aimed at the Red Sox, but there are 7 teams this year that could potentially lose 100 games. And there's never been a season in which more than 3.
More than 3. 3's the most that's ever happened.
It's all several teams, 4 in the American League and 3 in the National League, that have just thrown in the towel and sold off all their stars. And Baltimore's about to do another one probably. Yeah. And by doing that and rebuilding, you lose your fan base.
The astounding thing is, think about this. Remember at the beginning of the year, we were saying how the Tigers might be the worst team in baseball? Tigers are a game and a half out at first because Cleveland is only 500 leading the division. That AL Central especially is brutal. It's absolutely brutal.
But even if they're brutal, if they're even, that's still good for baseball.
Oh, sure it is. Sure.
If you win by... Your percentage is 506 and you win the division, so what?
You're in the playoffs, and anything can happen in the playoffs.
But Baltimore right now is 18 games out.
Yeah, they're done. Okay, it's not even Memorial Day.
Doing percentages, that means you're going to be 72 games out at the end of the year.
And it's not even Memorial Day, and they've already given up. But the White Sox are dreadful, the Royals are dreadful, which is partly their own fault. I think the Royals, they had that great couple-of-year run with the World Series, and I think they tried to get an extra year or 2 out of that core group, and that came back to bite them, I think, big time. But the Reds are dreadful. In fact, the NL Central makes up for the AL Central, where 4 of the 5 teams are contending. They have 4 legitimate contenders in that division, except for Cincinnati.
The Padres are terrible. Yep. The Marlins are terrible. White Sox have only won 12 games so far.
That's frightening. And astoundingly, the Dodgers have been terrible this year. We remember with our first episode this year, we said there are 6 teams that are odds-on favorites to win the division. Yeah. Which one of the 6 do you think is going to struggle the most? I don't think anyone would have picked the Dodgers to be the one struggling out of all those 6 teams.
But they go with injuries.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kershaw gets hurt. They lose some key guys.
Yep.
So far, knock on wood, the Red Sox have stayed pretty healthy.
But you're right. It's not good for baseball to have that many bad teams. You're right. You lose a fan base, and then what it does is. We all know that I can't stand the ESPN Sunday night games. We all know this, and I've made no bones about it before. Do you think any of those 7 teams are going to get exposure on ESPN Sunday night or MLB Network or anything like that? Nobody's going to want to watch those teams.
The other night, because it was a late game, I turned on the Reds versus the Padres in San Diego. And there was nobody there.
I couldn't tell you many
Nobody
players
there.
on the team either. So who
Nobody
are these
there.
guys?
It's not good. You have to have parity. At least in football, a football game is a football game.
Right.
You know, there's something exciting about a game,
Right.
even if you don't win it.
Right.
But a baseball game between two bad teams is really dreadful.
And in football, they assure parity because they adjust the schedules next year. If
Right.
you're a bad team, you get an easy, in theory anyway, according to the records,
Right.
you get an easier schedule the next year. So they sort of encourage that. You know, baseball is so locked into the divisions and sort of the luck of the geography more than anything. Is that and at the same time, as much as we love that the Red Sox are fantastic, it's not good to have 3 or 4 teams that blow everyone else away either.
No, it's not.
It's great for your team if you're a fan, but in terms of all of baseball, it's not good.
And they're playing hugely up the Red Sox Yankees this year.
Oh, God,
Every
yes.
single play up.
Oh, every single
there
series.
are other teams.
They're right, yeah. The Astros are still pretty good, and they did win last year, remember? I mean, you've heard nothing about them all year. They're terrific
They're an
this year.
excellent team.
Yep, they're a terrific team. And there are a couple surprise teams, like the Phillies are playing surprisingly well. The Braves are playing surprisingly well.
Yes, they are.
We haven't heard anything about them. And I talked about the NL Central. 4 teams are all in contention right there, and they're all about 24 and 18. That's going to be a real dogfight. You haven't
Right.
heard anything at all about that. And Arizona's playing terrific too, but it's all Sox Yankees. And we sort of live in a bubble sometimes because we're Red Sox fans, and so we never get enough of it. But on a national scale, it's not good because people get tired of Sox Yankees.
That's right.
They were in the mid-2000s. It was so hyped up because they were the 2 best teams, and people were burned out on them, and there was a lot of backlash about that.
They do like the Stars, though.
Oh, they do.
Judge and Stanton.
Oh my God, yeah.
Sanchez has more home as a major.
He does. And until the last week or so, Gregorius was carrying that offense more than anyone, although he's 0 for 35 now or something like that.
Team.
They do. They have a very good team. They have a very good bullpen. And they're the 2 best teams in baseball right now, so they're hyping it up, but the hype is...
Things may change by the next show.
Yeah, hopefully they will. That'd be really nice.
One other thing that we both have decided is bad is the extra netting they put up in Fenway Park. It's like you're in a fishbowl now. It used to be great to have seats down the first few rows. They toss you, bat boys can toss you balls.
Oh, yeah.
You can talk to people, take close-up pictures. But since people live on their phones at the ballpark now,
Yes, they do.
sit there watching the game on this rather than this way. There have been a few people that have been hit. But, you know, there's always been people who have been hit by balls, and they still can, because it can go over the net in some places.
Sure.
But it actually makes for difficult viewpoints, because you're down the line in the first row or 2, looking this way, you're seeing the net. It's not holes, but just a line. Visually, it's not good.
And at Fenway, there are seats that don't face the field anyway.
That's right.
So now instead of looking at home plate, you're looking at first base, center field, and you turn this way, and there's a cable running right in front of you, right down your viewpoint. You already have to look around poles and turn yourself this way, and now there's additional
And the
stuff.
pole goes down the left field line, right to where it juts out. And last night, there was a foul ball hit.
Oh.
And the guy went over to make the catch, and he almost slammed into the pole. He backed away and tried to get around it to make the catch.
Sure.
It's. I think that's going to cause some problems with fielding. So
Oh, I agree, and it's an MLB mandate. It's not just the Red Sox. All teams have to do it. But I remember it goes to show our age here. But remember, back in the day, we were sitting behind the visitors' dugout, and we had a full-on conversation with Tom Bernansky.
That's right.
We were sitting in the second row, and he was just shooting the breeze with us during a pitching change.
It was a rain
delay. That's right. It was a rain delay.
What are you going to do if it gets rained out? He said, I'm going home to Minnesota. That's really cool.
And that accessibility that you used to get, especially at Fenway, is gone by that netting. There's a distance now that wasn't there before, and I think that detracts from being a fan. I really think that's a detraction. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for fan safety. If there's something that's a constant issue, then by all means go ahead and fix it. But it seems to be a bit of an overreaction, if you ask me.
Well, I think it's part of the times.
It is.
Part of the times.
The litigious times we live in.
Right, right. Don't be bullied by a bat.
Right. Anyway, so that's just our opinion.
Just our opinion.
And there's another area that's been sort of controversial lately, and again, we have opinions about this, is the name changing of Yawkey Way back to Jersey Street. which it was before Yawkey Way. Now,
The thinking is that the Red Sox were the last team to have a black player. And it was known that Yawkey, who owned a plantation in South Carolina, and some of the people he hired, like Mike Higgins,
Picky Higgins, absolutely,
were very avowed racists. And there was another episode of a fellow named Don Fitzpatrick, which started out as a clubhouse boy and became the equipment manager, was involved with molesting some of the black bat boys. And apparently Yawkey knew about it, but since Fitzpatrick used to throw him batting practice personally when he was out there, so they decided that Yawkey was a racist and was a cover-up. And again, in these times we live in, let's get rid of him and revise history.
Let's be politically correct about
Revise
everything.
history.
Right.
So they put it back to Jersey Street, and with a little research, you find out that Jersey owned slaves.
So pick your poison, folks.
My gripe is that there would not be a Boston Red Sox team any longer if Yawkey hadn't saved the franchise
Absolutely.
in 1934.
The Braves would still be in Boston, not the Red Sox.
The Red Sox were pathetic from the time they sold Babe Ruth until he bought the team. Check their records from 1920 to 1932. Lost 100 games several times.
Oh, and the attendance was so bad that part of the third base bleachers burned one year, and they never replaced them. They didn't have to because nobody sat out there. Now think about that: Fenway Park and no one sitting in the third base.
I think it was 32. They had 282,000 total attendance.
Total
Attendance, which now they get in a week.
Right.
So he bought the stadium, he rebuilt it, he put the wall up, took away the cliff, made it into the place that it was, and purchased stars. He purchased Jimmy Fox, he purchased Lefty Grove, and then he brought along players like Ted Williams and Bobby Dorr from the West Coast,
and Johnny Pesky
from the West Coast, Don DiMaggio. So he, to my mind, is why there is still a Fenway Park.
Agreed. And let's be perfectly honest, you can do revisionist history on anyone. And people forget in the context of the times too, right? I'm not saying that makes it right, but you have to look at the way the country in general and people in general thought about things at the time, rather than looking at it through the 2018 telescope. And you can dig up dirt on a lot of owners who did not so good things, not just for racism, but for sexism, anything you want to dig up on someone in the history of baseball owners, you're going to find it.
You've got to understand that the zeitgeist changes from year to year. That's exactly what the word means. But the way people thought at the time. Just a silly little but accurate example. I used to teach Hamlet to my classes. One girl started to read the play and said, "I'm not reading this. This guy's a male chauvinist pig."
But for 500 years, nobody had that complaint about it.
well, no, I mean, women were, in the time of Shakespeare,
women didn't act either.
Not even to act on stage. Of course he was. And if you read the play with more insight, he actually wasn't at all. But because he made some comments, it's just, you can't think today the way they thought yesterday.
Exactly.
And you should be able to appreciate that. And so by changing the name of the place, I find that objectionable.
I'm with you. So
but politically, the vote comes up in the city council. Oh yes, that's
right. So you can feel free to agree, disagree with us. That's just the thoughts of talking baseball. Again, an overreaction.
Here's another ugly thing. I suppose ugly from our point of view. We were no hit this year.
We were, which hadn't happened in 25 years.
That's right, 25 years since we lost the no-hitter.
And Sean Manaea from the A's came in, and credit to him, he pitched a great game, but a lot of no-hitters is luck too, as we've talked about before. But he no-hit the Red Sox, and it sort of threw him off for a few games after that. It was very
coming
odd.
off the California series where they outscored California 27-3.
Right.
Games. And this guy comes in, and there weren't that many great plays behind him.
No, it was just a lot of soft contact. And we saw, and a couple of years ago, we went to a Sox game at Fenway, and I think it was Manaea's rookie year, and the Sox crushed him. I think got 6 runs off him in 4 innings or something. And, granted, pitchers learn their craft, and that's not a knock on him, but it was just sort of odd to see it happen to the Red Sox.
Shut down at a time when the team was doing so well.
And usually when no-hitters happen, I'm watching MLB Network and I'm rooting for it to happen, and it's disappointing when it doesn't happen. And it was sort of like, oh, that just happened. It was this odd feeling when it was done. It's cool in terms of baseball that a no-hitter happened, but when it happens to your team, you're sort of...
And they haven't lost many. I think in my fandom times, they've only lost 6 no-hitters.
Sure. I remember the Dave Righetti one, I remember, and the Chris Bosio one, I remember.
Jim Bunning.
See, those are before my time.
Not many.
But I do remember the Dave Righetti one on the 4th of July on Channel 38 back in the day, before he was a closer. He was a starter when he first came up, and he no-hit the Red Sox. It was kind of bizarre.
And who was the pitcher the day that Carl Everett broke up the...
Oh, Messina. Messina had the perfect game with 2 outs to the 9th, and Carl Everett
hit.
Hit!
Blooped one in. No perfect game for you today.
Yeah. And Messina was dealing that night, too. He really had a great game with it. Hey, you never want to see a Yankee get a perfect game, I'm sorry. So that's some of the ugly stuff that's happened, but there's one more ugly thing we have to bring up that's pretty inexcusable.
The name is Carson Smith. Now, Carson Smith was picked up last year, supposedly going to be our ace in the bullpen, and he was injured all year. We never got to see him at all. Very end of the year, he came up and threw a few games.
And he was on the playoff roster, actually, because he looked pretty good at the end of the year.
He starts out this season supposedly in pitchable shape. And he had kind of fair to
middling success.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So he comes in a game last week. Game is tied 5-5, and he gives up a home run, which turns out to be the losing run. Walks into the dugout, winds up and slams his glove down on the bench and blows out his shoulder.
Separates his shoulder. And maybe a career-ending injury, depending on what happens. So,
now, instead of stepping up and apologizing, he sort of muddled around and indicated that he'd been overused by the...
Which was completely false. He'd never been used 2 days in a row. He pitched 15 innings?
14 innings.
All year. Never used on consecutive days, usually for just a couple batters, which is completely inexcusable. Revisionist history that we were just talking about.
That sort of stuff, you can't have players like that. That smacks back to the chicken and
beer mentality. Right? Sure.
And Cora was asked about it, and Cora indicated that we're going to have a little talk.
Yeah.
But that was not a good thing to happen.
And especially, like you said, the numbers don't bear it out, but the bullpen had been taking a lot of heat lately, and that was the last thing they needed was a bullpen guy to go down. Yeah. Because I think when you get into the depths of that bullpen, I think Brian Johnson's shown that he's good as a 5th starter. His stuff isn't bullpen material.
And they brought Bobby Pointer back.
And, who I think they've used once since he came back, and Cora misused him. He should never face a righty, I'm sorry. Left him in to face a righty, and he gave up a game-winning hit.
That's right.
So, I don't know, maybe Pointer will be their one-out lefty guy, which is the one thing I think they need in that bullpen. They need somebody to neutralize Brett Gardner, who drives us crazy and kills the Red Sox every single time they play him. He should never face a righty after the 7th inning. Get a lefty who can neutralize him. Maybe Pointer's that guy.
I got to be honest. I used to hate everybody on the Yankees. Now, I don't have anything against them. I wish Judge was on the Red Sox.
Sure. Oh, definitely.
He's a very nice guy. But Gardner, I cannot stand. I call him the water spider. He's got his pants rolled up to his knees, so it looks like he's shooting a golf course. And his silly bald head.
It's like a pointy head too. It's not even rounded. It's like a cone head thing going.
And he slides into first all the time.
Yeah, the Mike Greenwell slide into first. Yeah, he is sort of the. There's always one Yankee you have to hate, and then he's the Yankee to hate. But you're right. I think Judge is a likable guy. Stanton's a likable guy. I like Sanchez a lot.
Gregorius plays a big smile on his face.
Sure. Yeah. You can hate them because they're the Yankees, but personally, it's a very hard team. It's not the days of Paul O'Neill throwing his helmet or David Wells being a jerk or anything like that. Those days are long gone.
And I think it's interesting when the Kelly episode happened. the press generally thought that was a good idea.
Right,
Because
sure.
if you bring back the old days of Fisk versus Munson,
Right.
everybody gets Mickey Rivers.
Yeah, right. Or Pedro versus everybody back in the day.
They like that because that seems like it's a real thing, not
Sure.
just a
Sure.
show thing.
Sure.
So
Anything to stoke the rivalry. So that's sort of our good, bad, and ugly scenarios of the season, which, don't get us wrong, most of it, the vast majority of it is good. It's hard to complain about a team that's won over two-thirds of its games, but there is some tweaking, and as always in the course of 162 game, there is drama, even with the most focused team. I thought I might mention Cora a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't have too many complaints. I think he's misused his bullpen a couple times, but that's going to even itself out. Like I talked about, leaving Pointer in that one game was a huge mistake. But I don't have a whole lot of objections. He seems to ask accountability of his players, which is far different from some of the guys in the past who would just kind of fall on the sword from him for the player. And it seems like there's an attitude change. Like Hanley Ramirez is smiling all the time. There just seems to be a general attitude change in the dugout. That guys just seem to be enjoying themselves a lot more than they were under Farrell.
My little quibbles is he seems to have the first four in the lineup in cement. Those four guys couldn't play. Also, if you remember probably the first 4 weeks, he sat somebody down every day.
Yeah, see, I disagree. Yes, I disagree with that.
He ain't doing that anymore.
No. And, well, you know what? You know what changed that was the game that Price started, and Price pitched a fantastic game, but he had what and this was my biggest criticism of Tito Francona. He ran out the Sunday lineup. I call it the Sunday lineup, where you rest a lot of the regulars and you have this just banjo-hitting lineup. He did it that one game, and in Oakland no less, where it's a horribly difficult place to hit in the first place. Right. He set Betts and Ramirez and Nunez that game, and Holt was hurt. So I think he had Lynn at shortstop and Bradley in the outfield, and the catchers were struggling. And Price pitched a fantastic game, and they lost 4-1 only because Price had to pitch into the 8th inning that game and gave up a homer late. And I agree with that. And he has not done it that game. He got a lot of heat, I remember, for doing that.
And you notice Aaron Boone doesn't sit anybody down.
No,
Judge
never.
Plays every game. Stan plays every game. The Waters fighter plays every game.
Right.
All the time. I mean, Betts is 25 years old.
Right.
And the schedule this year has a lot more built-in off days.
It does.
That's why they started so much earlier.
Sure.
A lot of money. Sox aren't playing this
A lot of money. And there are a lot of time they'll have a day off, play a series, then have another game off right afterwards too. There are a lot of them. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for not burning guys out. But I think, especially when Petey comes back, I think with Holt and Nunez on your bench, they're two really versatile guys, and you can rotate those days off and keep those guys fresh too, without excessively giving the starters the day off. That's
and
just
they can with Moreland too.
Sure, absolutely.
The DH left field.
Absolutely.
They can rotate.
So I think they have some pretty versatile moving pieces.
But in April, it seemed like he was saying, okay, Wednesday, Betts isn't playing.
Right, without regards to matchup or anything like that. Sure,
this is his designated day off.
Right.
But no, one time, I think Mookie had 2 doubles and a home run. He doesn't play in the next day.
And the next day he was off. I think it was the Oakland game, actually. Or not even regards to the starting pitchers. Like, I remember he sat Moreland a couple times against right-handers, which is asinine.
The whole point
Moreland should be starting, and his career splits aren't awful, but he's better against right-handers.
He's definitely better in the first half of the season, too.
Sure, absolutely. So
all starts out well.
So use him while you can.
He seems to be, he's another guy that seems very affable.
Yeah, he does, absolutely. Sure. But I mean, we're nitpicking, obviously, because I think it's hard to criticize a manager who has a team winning over 2/3 of its games, but those are just little things we've noticed. And again, with the bullpen thing, that shakes out over the course of the season. A lot of teams are in that boat. We can't all have the Astros bullpen where you just run guys out one after another.
No, the Yankees bullpen, although their bullpen is odd because they got 5 or 6 good guys, and every single one of them at some point or other blows up.
Well, Betances has had a horrendous year so far. What happened to him?
And even who's a closer?
Oh, Chapman.
Chapman. When he comes in, sometimes he'll walk the first 2 or 3 guys on trouble,
and he'll immediately get himself in trouble. Well, and and a lesson to be learned from using your bullpen too much. Look at the Indians this year.
Yeah.
Excuse me. The Indians have the second worst bullpen in baseball right now because Tito's burned them out the last 2 or 3 years. All those guys, Shaw and Allen, every game the starter would go 5 innings, and he'd bring in the same guys to close out the game the last 4 innings. And we've talked about you can get away with that in the playoffs, because it's a 3-week stretch. But during the season, you can't do that without repercussions down the road. And Tito's totally fried that Indians bullpen, so you can't do that.
I mean, sometimes, if you know the game is a loss caused by the 4th inning,
Right.
you just, like the other day, the Sox brought in the knuckleballer.
Oh, and he pitched the whole rest of the game, yeah.
Pitched the rest of the game.
Sure, why not?
We're not going to win this, so why fry the
Right,
bullpen?
and you need a guy like that.
Right.
I call it garbage time.
Right.
You need a garbage time guy in your bullpen, and I think Wright is that guy until he proves differently. I mean, the guy is an all-star, so let's give him a little benefit
Well,
of the
they used
doubt.
Wakefield like that.
They did, absolutely.
Bring him in, let him finish the game.
Yeah, let him pitch 5 innings to finish the game, and that you're fresh the next day.
Yeah.
But that's an important part of the bullpen. You can't have 6 guys who throw 1 inning and throw 100 miles an hour for that 1 inning. That you can't have. It doesn't work that way.
Not every day.
Not every day. Exactly. So,
Well, we'll work around to our trivia answer now.
yes.
This is kind of an interesting stat.
Like we said, jelly beans in the jar stat.
From 1901, when the American League began, with the Boston Americans and the New York Highlanders playing each other, the Yankees have won 1,197 games, and the Red Sox have won 1,007. So they're, let's see, 190 games behind in the standings.
We'll make that up by the end of the century. That won't be a problem.
They also had 14 ties.
Which beautiful thing, the Yankees had a tie the other day, went to make it up the next day, and they both got rained out, both games. So, good. Let them go to Washington at the end of the year and make those games up.
Last September, the Red Sox beat the Yankees for the 1,000th time.
They did, that's right. And it makes sense. I mean, think about all those great teams the Yankees had in the 50s where they would just blow out the Sox every year.
The murderers row in the 20s.
Sure, right, sure. So I think in the past years that sort of evened out. Usually at the end of the year they were 11-8, 10-9, exactly what you'd expect.
And remember, they used to play 22 games against each
Sure,
other.
absolutely.
22 games.
Yeah,
and many times it'd be 19-3, 18-4.
Well, for years the Yankees would blow out the bad teams. Like, didn't they go like 20-1 against the Browns one year?
And the Senators.
Yeah, the Senators and the A's. They would just destroy those teams.
Right. Yeah.
Well, those Yankee teams were built to just destroy bad teams. Yeah. That's how they were constructed. And even into the 90s when they had those really good teams, they were designed to just overwhelm the bad teams. Yeah. That was sort of
that's what you got to do.
Sure, absolutely.
The Red Sox had a soft schedule to start the season out. They went 17-2.
That's what you got to do. And they took advantage of it. Yep. And the only team that really they've struggled against is Oakland so far. And Oakland's better than
Oakland is a good team.
Oakland's a very good team.
It's an underrated team.
And it's also. And this is where you get into a problem with small sample size when you're only playing a team 6 games a year. It just happened that both series, the A's ran their 1 and 2 guys out at us. That happens.
Yeah.
Then the Sox and Sale pitched 1 game, but their 2 aces were against our 4 and 5 guys. That happens in the course of a year.
In the last Yankees series, they had their 1-2-3. Sale didn't even pitch in the series.
Right, exactly. So you can't read too much into one series.
You've got to win every game.
Right.
So if you're turn the rotation doesn't come up for the big game, why save them?
Right, exactly. I agree. Absolutely.
Sometimes if you put your ace against their ace, that's not a smart thing to do.
Absolutely.
You're better off to put your ace against
their and give them credit. The A's 1 and 2 guys pitched like 1 and 2 guys. They pitched great games against the Sox. So I wouldn't look too much into that struggle. That seems sort of a fluke sample size for that one. And other than that, they beat every team. They've split with the Yankees. And every other team they have a winning record against. Right. So they're beating teams across the board, which is what you're supposed to do. So we haven't played the Astros yet, so we'll wait till we get there.
Or Cleveland.
Or Cleveland. But Cleveland's a 500 team right now. And they haven't run into those National League teams which look to be better than expected. As we said, the Phillies and the Braves look pretty good so far.
Atlanta this coming week.
Right. And Washington got a bad start, but they've been super hot lately. They've been playing very well.
Phillies?
I don't know. Well, I don't know. Their youth movement came together at once. I don't know. They
Gabe
look great.
Kappa starts out by taking out the pitcher with nobody warming up.
And now he's a genius,
right?
right?
On a rail. Now
And so we'll see. They do have some tough teams to play, but I think they've been through, in terms of just road versus home, they've been through that toughest stretch of the schedule already that we talked about, that mid-April to mid-May, when they had 6 home games in 30 days or something like that. So they don't have to go through a stretch like that. And no Texas and no Oakland. Thank God, we got them out of the way.
So before we close, one other interesting development. It was announced by Fenway Park that next year the Red Sox and Yankees will play 2 games in London. In London, June 29th and 30th, with the Red Sox acting as the home team. But wait, there's more. Besides the Ginseng Knives, there's also going to be 2 more games in 2020 in London with the Yankees as the home team.
So we're going abroad. We're going onto a different continent now.
Now, I think the reason is to try to make this an international sport, so that they'll have people in London buying Red Sox, Yankees stuff, buying baseball stuff, just like they're trying to bring soccer back here.
Well, and the NFL is trying to get a foothold in
That's
London too.
foothold in London.
The NFL even toyed with the idea of having a team in London, if you can believe it or not. But in football, when you have 1 game a week, it makes a little more sense, at least, to do it that way. You have the time zone change. You can get used to it. You can come back. The NFL, I don't see it as much of a problem. I don't think it's a very good idea in baseball. That's just me.
Remember, 3-4 years ago, the Sox opened the season in Japan against Oakland.
Yep.
And the announcers, Jerry said he wasn't right for a month after that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, we've both been to England. It's a 6-hour time difference. And it takes you 2 days to adjust to that time schedule. It does.
And that was at the beginning of the season, and they came back, it was 2 or 3 days before they played again. This is going to be take 1 day off, flying over, play 2 games, take 1 day off, come back and keep playing.
I remember when we came back from London, we slept the entire flight back because you're burned out. Your body needs to adjust to that, and you can't do it on a 1-day schedule like that. I mean, I just don't think it's a very good idea, and I don't know how much revenue are you going to get from a British audience of baseball. Are they going to get it into like the British cable packages and they get revenue from that?
55,000 seats in that stadium. Now, I asked our friend Gordon Eads when we saw him last week, how does one get tickets? Are they going to be available for people in this country to get, or the Red Sox going to have? When they went to Japan, the Red Sox offered a trip $5 grand.
I remember that.
$5 grand for the flight, the stay, and the tickets.
Sure.
$5 grand a game. Is they going to do something like that, or is the tickets not going to be available to Americans so they can just sell them to England?
They haven't really
I know when the Sox played in Denver against the Rockies would not sell anything to Boston fans.
I remember that.
You couldn't.
I remember that.
You had to get them through the club somehow.
Sure, I remember that.
So,
Yeah, and I think there was some deal. The Dodgers played in Mexico City earlier,
Right.
and I think there was something very similar to that they blocked Dodger fans from going down to Mexico to get the tickets. I'd have to check on that, but they've done Mexico City in Japan now. Now it's going to be
they've
London.
done Puerto Rico.
They've done Puerto Rico, yes, right.
They're trying to expand it, but you know. So the Sox at Fenway play the Yankees 2 games less next year.
Right,
Which is the games you all wait to
which
see.
lost revenue for the team.
Prime,
Right.
wow. It's. I don't know if the season ticket holders can get a cheap seat in Tokyo.
That's right,
London,
true.
or wherever they're going to play.
Well, and it just seems to me like there's no audience there. Like Japan is huge into baseball. Mexico is huge into baseball.
Right,
Puerto Rico, all the Latin American countries that they're thinking about going into. There's a baseball audience there. There is not a baseball audience in England.
Well, they're trying to create one.
They're trying to create one.
So they take the biggest rivalry over
Right.
there. Maybe Joe Kelly will do his thing.
Yeah, right.
Something to stir it up. They go over there and there's a 1-0 pitching duel.
Oh, mate, that was awful.
We score more in soccer.
Right. It's, I don't quite understand the point of it, especially, like you said, mid-season. When they did Japan, granted, I think, didn't quite agree with it, but it was the beginning of the year. They had some time off, at least before the start of the season. This is smack in the middle of the season. You have the All-Star break where you're off for 4 days anyway, and then a week and a half later they're going out to London.
I don't see stimulating Japan's baseball because it's good.
Right. Sure, yeah.
And a lot of their players come over here and they're televised back to Japan. How are you going to amp up the interest in baseball in Japan? But in England, I don't know.
I don't get it.
We've been there on Boxing Day, the day after Christmas, when all the soccer leagues and football leagues.
Right, football leagues, sure.
And every guy and his son goes out there with their matching socks.
Oh, absolutely. Oh,
Can't see
yeah.
them going out there and cheering for the water spots.
Oh, yeah. I remember we were being in a pub, and any time a team won, you'd hear the beeping, and the taxis would go by. People would run in the streets with flags and cheer and everything. And are they going to do that for a Red Sox-Yankees series? I doubt it.
It didn't seem to me. I watched a couple of the games, the football games they played over there. It didn't seem to me that was met with great enthusiasm.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think
The
so.
games are just a couple of teams playing a game, and they weren't the top teams.
No, I think it was Oakland and somebody else. There were two pretty bad teams that went over there.
And the game was kind of lackluster. So.
Yeah. Well, and I think, well, football, they sort of have rugby. Baseball, they have cricket. So I think they're going to compare it to cricket, if you ask me. They're going to say, well, why do you do this? You do this in cricket. You don't do this in baseball. So you can't throw a googly in baseball the way you can cricket. So
you see the latest ad on TV about cricket terms?
Yes. Sixer, yes. So we're sort of, I don't know, I think that we're, as of now, I don't think it's a very good idea. Maybe we'll see some evidence in the meantime.
When we do a show in July of 2019,
we'll let you know.
We'll let you know how it came out.
Hopefully we'll still be on the air by then. We don't know. But
so long. It's been a good first quarter.
Thanks for watching as always, and go Red Sox. Hopefully the first quarter is a portend of things to come, and the next three quarters will be exactly the same.
See you all on. Thanks again.
All right, Joe. Take care.
Take care, folks.
Thank you for watching another outstanding program provided to you by Lunenburg Public Access. We're here to serve the community. Lunenburg Public Access is always looking for volunteers to help record town events, high school sports, and town meetings. Please consider helping us out today. To contact us, you can call 617-763-3018 or email us at lunenburgaccess@gmail.com.